Good afternoon. This is the Townsend Finance Committee meeting being called to order at 4:02 p.m. As we have people in person and on the line, a roll call vote or roll call attendance is required.
Gerald Bazakis?
Mark Hussey.
Ron Hayes present. And Andrea, you're on mute.
Yeah, I'm here.
Thank you. We're at 4, so that gives us a quorum. We're good to go. This meeting is being recorded for availability on the YouTube channel later and is being broadcast live on Channel 9. At this next item on the agenda, the additions and deletions, we had just received email minutes before the meeting from town administrators, so we will update the work session and that is the first item on the agenda. The first item that had been on the agenda, the reserve fund transfer request, has been withdrawn at this point, so we don't have anything there. So that's the only change to the agenda at this point. Anybody else have agenda?
Excuse me. I thought you had a reserve fund transfer from Kathy Spofford.
We did. She saw me just before the meeting and said she has withdrawn it.
Geez, everybody's on mute.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
So that's why we'll.
I knew she was looking for another source of the money, but she wasn't positive she could find it.
No,
I'm glad it worked out. Thank you.
It did. It's kind of like
I'm coming up with Julie Grant.
we have accepted the reserve fund. We had received a copy, so it's going on to the log, but we will put that it was withdrawn in the event that the money, the expected money is not there. It's a reimbursement account that has not been paid yet, but the state will reimburse. Is planning to reimburse some election coverages and some of the election work for the hours over, so that should cover it. Any additional items that we want to add to the agenda? I'm sorry, there's one more we'll put at the end, item 5. We have this Saturday, the joint board with Board of Selectmen, Saturday morning, a budget summit, and bring in department heads and review additional budgets at that time.
What time is that, Tom?
8:30 to 12:30.
8:30 till.
Till
8:30 till.
We're gonna try to
Yeah.
give everybody a brief window.
Slot, yeah. And we'll appoint the timekeeper.
Hopefully it'll stay with the 12:30, because if it doesn't, I'm not gonna be able to stay much longer.
I was gonna say that's what happened, right, that time. And I'm sorry, I see that Sam showed up, and Sam, we did roll call, if you could.
Yeah, Sam Grant here.
Okay, and you came in about 4:05 p.m.
Yes, I've been here since 10. I was trying to figure out how to read your stuff.
Okay, well,
Do
we'll
that.
go over.
They don't have this though, do they?
Emails come in very small type, and I've not figured out how to get them. What you send to come bigger, no matter who you are. In this case, FinCom stuff, but nonetheless. And all the messing around got me nowhere. So I copied and pasted it over to a Word document where I can read it.
Okay, I will share it as we go, so we'll get on that. And so let me go now to share. Did you send out to everybody on FinCom this latest information?
I did not.
Okay.
No,
Okay.
I send it to you. I
Yep.
didn't.
I will share it and then I'll forward it later to everybody. Okay. Gotta do the right stuff. Okay. Just trying to get it on the screen for everybody. Okay. So, now with that, we'll,
I don't think it's shared yet, though.
oh, thank you. Okay. Sorry.
I don't know.
Yeah, no, I got it here.
Yeah, that's for the year, but still not for the year.
Okay, sorry about that. I should now have the file from Eric shared on the screen.
It is.
So so everybody on Zoom, do you have the ability to see, it starts with account name on the top line with 3522.
Yeah, that is an error.
That's it, yeah. Yeah.
22.
Back in 22.
Yeah, back in 22, so that, okay, so, do you want to start with this or?
Sure.
Or,
That would probably be easiest,
okay,
if that's okay with the.
Yeah.
And I'm just gonna go kind of right down the line.
Mhm.
For folks to we'll take a look. The proposed Board of Selectmen budget is under FY24 draft, obviously.
Mhm.
So that column is what we're looking at for coming up for next year. So, the top line is contractual salary for myself.
Mhm.
The next line is wages for the executive assistant. So just for purposes of the FinCom's awareness, the salary lines in here are built around some assumptions for steps and COLA, which have not been codified with the unions yet.
Okay.
So these numbers could go. They could go down. They likely won't go up because I don't think there's any room for them to go up.
Okay.
But that's
But they're non-union positions, are they?
the executive assistant is a non-union position.
In yourself?
No.
But I'm a contractor.
Right. So I guess I don't understand you saying negotiate.
As we get further down.
Oh, farther down the list.
Yeah,
I
as you
see.
go
Oh,
through the
yeah,
list,
right.
I'm
Okay.
assuming
Yeah.
for purposes of the initial budget, I'm assuming that whatever is given to union personnel, the same increases would go to non-union personnel who don't have a contract that already specifies something like that.
I see. Okay.
So those two, the next line is the auto allowance, which is dropping because my contractual auto allowance is less than the prior
Mhm.
town administrator. In FY23, that line actually paid for the prior town administrator's allowance as opposed to mine. Mine was paid for. It's being paid for out of my salary wages line because there's not there to do it.
Yeah.
If you drop down to BOS wages, temporary help.
Yeah.
So that obviously, as you note, from FY22 to FY23, that was dropped considerably.
Mhm.
We're trying to build back a little bit more capacity for hours for temporary help in the office. whether that be, additional time for, if we have to do the web redesign that we talked about, so we want to make sure that we have sufficient capacity for Harrison as the webmaster to be able to do that, or in his other role, he also has hours as an intern.
Yeah.
So that's just an additional, trying to build in some capacity for some extra work.
And again, that temporary help was to replace on a sick leave.
Right.
Back in 22.
Okay.
So that,
The next two lines are in the budget, the outreach coordinator and the human resources manager. In this year's budget, I'm doing something a little bit different than was done since ARPA was started.
Yeah.
So rather than have these as 0 lines in the budget and just fund it as ARPA kind of off screen, in the interest of transparency, what I would rather do is have their salaries in the budget and then have a line in our revenues as, other non-general fund revenues.
yeah, that was,
ARPA line.
yeah, that's perfectly acceptable. That I had suggested doing it last year so that we see the full budget.
Yeah.
And can watch the ARPA money go away and know that it gets to the 5-year
Right.
outlook.
Yeah.
As we get to the future and the salaries need to be picked up, can we be able to afford to do
Can
that
we do that?
at the time?
So
So,
in this year, for FY 24, I have budgeted ARPA offsets as $10,000 each less than those positions are being funded at.
okay,
So Human Resources Manager has an ARPA offset of $39,971,
Mhm.
and the Community Outreach Coordinator has an offset of $66,628.
Okay.
The next, in FY 25 budget, I'm gonna take another $10,000 off.
Yeah.
So that we're gradually weaning ourselves off ARPA before the,
right.
before the end of ARPA.
And that's with these positions. I believe there was also a police and a fire
Mhm.
that as we get.
And as we get down,
Okay,
we'll
that's
see
fine.
those. Those are gonna be treated a little bit differently, but
Similar.
whenever we talk about police and fire, maybe it'll be on Saturday. We'll
Yeah.
talk about how that's gonna
Okay.
work.
Yeah.
For purposes of their money, we are gonna treat it a little bit different.
Right.
So and then there's the grant administrator. That position has been zeroed out as part of an effort we increased the land use coordinator position by 5 hours and added some grant administration responsibilities in that in an effort to get a better candidate by providing a higher salary.
Right,
We're still looking for candidates, so anybody know a good land use coordinator, please tell them to give me a call. But that's why that's zeroed out of this budget. And the last one is the webmaster. The fairly simple. So, interestingly enough, because we're not paying a wages settlement to a town administrator who's not working,
Yeah.
the personnel line is actually $50,000 less than it was last year.
Yeah.
So,
Is that over?
that's over. It will be in.
yeah, as of June 30th, it's all, that's
Right.
all done with the exception of, I think there's some opportunities for Cobra or at the end of the term, but for purposes of the budget, it's done.
Right.
So that's the personnel. The next is all of the non-personnel expenses. So we're requesting an increase in the professional services line. That's been, for the course of this year, it seems a little bit low for the.
How much do we actually go over on that every year? Do you know? Just offhand.
I don't. It's
It's gotta be more than $2,000.
yeah. I mean, so I think we try to scrape other places for the
Yeah,
money
sure.
to cover it. But yeah, I mean, professional services for hiring one consultant to do one thing is going to cost us more than $2,000. So,
Oh, yeah.
so for instance, the consultant that we're hiring to look at the potential for retiree healthcare, it's a $5,000 consulting job.
Yeah.
So the $2,000 went away, and we had to find $3,000 somewhere else to try and supplement that funding. So this is just to get it up to allow a little bit more services to the town. The town reports professional services. That number is simply a result of the added costs for budgeting the town reports. Unfortunately, the cost of paper and those things has gone up.
Printing and.
Yeah, it's not. It's actually, I think this has actually been in the deficit for a couple of years. And so this is just trying to catch it up. The remainder of the lines were level funded. That's not to say that we don't need
Mhm.
higher funds for those things. But my request was, unless there was an extenuating circumstances, I was hoping folks to try to level fund,
Mhm.
non-salary.
Yeah.
So that's the Board of Selectmen. The next is the FinCom.
Excuse me, can I ask a question? Please? Where is it under professional services, or where was Ross's salary for the work that he did with the Energy Committee for us? I was told by the treasurer that it was in the selectmen's budget. I just don't know where.
Yeah, so
I
that,
I think it was in either one of the lines with it.
well, so that was we carried over $10,000 from the FY22 budget to fund that. So that, I mean, I think it goes under, he gets paid out of the temporary help line.
Well, if you carried it over, why isn't it reflected in the budget?
So typically speaking, the way that it was carried over, it was an encumbrance from the end of FY22 into FY23. But it didn't change what the budget of the line that was voted at town meeting. It just encumbered some free, what would have been money that would have gone into free cash.
Well, then where in the total scheme of things does it show that that money was expended for that purpose?
Yeah, so what you would, that's not something that would show in the budgetary line like this. That's something that would show in the specific expenses in the temporary help line for FY23.
Okay, thank you.
Because the line was budgeted for 6,000, then those 10,000 that came in during the year, and it's been added to that as invoices have come in for Ross's contract. So that 6,000 has gone up and then down as the invoice is paid, and up and then down as the invoice is paid. That $10,000 has not yet been expended.
Thank you.
So the next one I included here was the FinCom budget.
Yeah.
It's just level funded from last year. I know that we had talked about trying to, think about whether or not the $40,000 FinCom reserve fund is a sufficient amount. And so I think that was something that it's worth having a conversation about. I don't know, maybe Don or Andrea or someone who's been on the FinCom for a while, how often does that, in the last few years, has that been expended down to zero in the last 5 years?
I don't believe it's been expended down to zero. The most significant year I recall was when we had to repair 2 fire trucks. And that in itself was 25,000.
Yeah.
And so when we have budgets and things like that, it in the large items, 40,000 is kind of
Disappears very quickly.
it disappears quickly. It's
Yeah.
kind of like there wasn't much else. I forget what else we may have had that year.
Yeah.
But the things that are really coming to mind is those last few years we start projects in pieces, and we seem to be coming in for repair items at the West Townsend Reading Room, or even the police department with their alarm this
Right.
year. It's kind of like and the elevator here. So it's kind of 40,000 just doesn't go as far as it
Yeah.
40,000 doesn't go as far as it used to, and the 40,000 has been in the budget as
For a long time.
for a long time.
Yeah.
It's true. There are only specific things you're supposed to use the Reserve Fund 4.
Mhm.
And the majority of the problems that we have with the budget are taken care of with the municipal transfer in May. And we've become, over time, more and more dependent upon the municipal transfer route than the reserve fund route.
Yeah. Yeah, so, I mean, you know, I think it's certainly worth keeping an eye on. I don't wanna, I guess the reality is there are lots of things that are emergencies that could come in and qualify for a reserve fund
Right.
transfer. And maybe it would be, maybe if there were more funds in the reserve fund, it would be easier to convince the FinCom to spend it earlier in the year. You know what I mean? I mean, because I
Right, yeah.
think that he would legitimately think we need to hold on because we might have big things coming up that we don't know about.
Right.
But one
So-
thing is that the in order to get the use the reserve fund, the item has to deplete or very nearly deplete the expense account. You can't
Right.
say, "Oh, I have an emergency that costs $40,000, but I have $50,000 still in expenses." Do you understand what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is what we did.
Alarm at the fire.
Yeah, with the alarm at the police department, that's
Yeah.
exactly what we did. We looked at that. It would not have depleted it at the time, but the next item coming in may have.
Right.
It's gonna,
Yeah.
so again, it gets to how we use it, when we use it, and the appropriate expenses to transfer it against. And again, municipal transfers are at the end of the year and have the requirement of 2 weeks before the end or 2 weeks into the next fiscal year.
Right.
This gives us the flexibility that if we need some money, we can move it and approve it, with just the finance committee looking at it.
Right.
So you think we should up?
I think we should, but again, let's use it as a contingency. The number that's coming is an additional 10,000 right now to get to 50,000 is a potential. If we don't have the room in the budget after we do the numbers, then we can shrink it back. Again, it's only a thought, because one of the other items that we have yet to hit on is the properties committee. Where I was on that, we needed some engineering done, and there's no money in anybody's budget to do that. So, you know, if we're gonna add some money into the properties committee so that they can direct people to go out and do engineering or a surveying it, a property before we list it, there's gotta be a place for them to get money too.
Sure.
So there may be a lot of string, you know, some more strings that are pulling in here. I just, you know, I'm just trying to present it. So I'd say I'd like to see more if we can, if it works its way into the budget.
Okay.
And the numbers, again, a 25% increase up to the 50,000. On that line.
We'll squeeze the stone and see what comes out.
Right, that's the piece. It's kind of like, as we go. Okay, any other questions on finance
I'm good.
committee or budget? Thank you. Okay, then moving into accounting.
So,
Let's do it, yeah.
no, I think that's, so with respect to the accounting line, the way the budget is laid out at the moment, is a little bit speculative because I don't have a proposal from Melanson yet about them picking up the town accountant. But as you can see, there's a couple of significant changes here. The first is we're gonna that top line is not just going to be a town accountant line. That is going to be a deputy town accountant line.
Okay.
Or actually, I think it might be an assistant town accountant. The title is still.
Mhm.
And so the idea here is we have been attempting to hire a town accountant at the money that we had available for a while. It has been
Mhm.
unsuccessful. We have not had any qualified candidates apply for the job. And this is a crisis across, all lots of Massachusetts towns where the going rate for a kind of lead accountant in a town now is definitely into the six figures.
Yeah.
And not just a little bit. So it's like $125,000, $130,000 for a full-time in-house town accountant.
Yeah.
So as an alternative to that, in an effort to try and split the gap a little bit,
Mhm.
what I proposed to the Board of Selectmen was that we attempt to hire an assistant town accountant who would be a full-time in the office all week position.
Mhm.
And then have Melanson reduce their scope of services to us. They would still be the town accountant.
Right.
But they would reduce our scope of services with the understanding that instead of using their staff to do all the backup work, that we would have an assistant town accountant that would be doing that backup work for them. So a
Excuse me.
lot.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, go on.
No, go ahead.
Wouldn't this person then have to be certified as well as the accountant? It would seem to me if you wanted somebody to do the job that they would be as difficult to hire as an accountant.
Well, no, because they would be reporting to our town accountant, who's the person who would be kind of signing off on everything and would be the one who's certified.
And they would do more than the assistant we have now.
Correct.
Yeah.
But always under the supervision of the town accountant.
You'd be here on a daily basis, right?
That person would be here on a daily basis as opposed to, so the assistant we have now is here 10 hours a week.
And Melanson agreed to have their person who we've hired to oversee and direct somebody in our budget.
Yeah, Melanson was actually very excited about the possibility of doing this.
Mhm. Because if they do that in multiple towns, the person becomes somebody that it's not totally allocated to
Yeah,
it.
they can be town accountant in a lot more towns if
Right.
they've got people on the ground that we're paying and we're paying, the salary for. But at the same time, what it allows us to do is maybe build our own town accountant.
Well,
And so-
one thing, in order to have a town accountant, to have a qualified municipal town accountant, you don't have to be a CPA and stuff.
Correct.
You pay much more when you go to Melanson. Not that it isn't worth it, because it probably is well worth it.
Sure.
They're very qualified. But I've always wondered that we gave out the impression that we needed to hire a CPA for town accountant, and we don't. We just need a municipal accountant, which is
Correct.
schooled less.
And so Melanson agreed to put together a proposal for the town for a reduced scope of work from the proposal they did this year, with the understanding that we would have a full-time staff person that would be able to do a lot of the background kind of everyday run-of-the-mill accounting work overseen by the Melanson town accountant as necessary.
What if we can't get the person you're looking for?
We
I think
can't,
it's a great idea.
what if we can't get the assistant town accountant?
Exactly.
I think we can get the assistant town accountant.
Gotta ask that question though.
Yeah.
I look for help every day.
Yeah.
Nobody's out there.
Yeah, yes, so we've already posted for the assistant town accountant job.
Yeah,
It has to be posted for 2 weeks, but I'm of the firm belief that we can get someone in here who I think can do the job.
Mhm.
And in a few years, like not
I think
now,
it's a great idea. I
in a
really
few
do.
years might be able to be a town
Yeah.
accountant
Mhm.
on their own.
With training and.
Right.
And we'll have to pay Melanson to basically help train them.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But at the end of it, instead of being on the hook for years and years of a consultant in the future, we have a person in-house who we've trained.
Right. I hope they don't go.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm a negative today. I'm sorry.
no, I'm just looking. I was just looking for some kind of creative way to try to
I think
get,
it's a great idea. I
you know.
really do if we get the right person.
yeah, to try to get more services for the
Mhm.
town. On,
And where does Melanson, we don't have the quote yet, is there?
we don't have the quote yet. So if you looked at other professional and technical services, that's
Yeah.
increased by $40,000.
Okay, yeah.
So
Okay, so that's,
that would cut. I mean that's. But I don't have the quote, so I don't know if it's going to fit specifically into this scale,
Mhm.
or if I have to adjust it
Okay.
a little bit.
No, that's all I was looking for is with a place to hold.
Yeah.
Otherwise I hadn't got there yet on that.
Yep.
Okay.
The other thing that you'll know is increased is the accountant training dues and memberships.
Yeah.
So there's an extra $2,500 into the accountant training dues and memberships.
Mhm.
We understand that we're going to have a person on here that we're going to want to be doing as much training as we can get them to do.
Yeah.
So,
With that, and one of the things that, because it would then sort of be buried in a line, should we break it out in that, leave this with accounting dues and memberships and an accounting training, so that we can, if need be, run budgets similar to every other department would have a training line that's not tied to dues and memberships. That if we have it in the same grouping, we'd be able to run and say how, pretty.
Sure. Yeah, that wouldn't. I mean,
How
that
much-
wouldn't be an issue to break those
Yeah.
two out.
That's all. It's kind of like that's all I'd say on that. Leave the 150. That line becomes a 0, and then we're looking at the additional 2,500 for training.
Yeah.
And I think that's reasonable. It goes with the other departments that have individual training lines that are broken out.
Right.
Easy to identify in there.
Yeah, so this is obviously a kind of a big change
Mm.
from the way the town has done accounting
Yeah.
services in the past. But we had a big change last year when we went to a consultant. So I'm just hoping that it's a little bit closer to what I think the town
Yeah,
traditionally used to, which is having a person you can walk in every day and
Right.
ask your questions to. So the next, I included the legal counsel professional services. It's we're level funding it.
Mhm.
That seems to be going well, right now.
Okay, Yep.
I checked the most recent expense report, and we seem to be doing okay, maintaining ourselves within budget for legal services this year. So, the next one is MIS.
Yeah.
So the big change you'll see in here is the professional and purchase services. Got a bump.
Yeah.
Holy mackerel.
Yeah.
Look how many times they came to us for money last year.
I mean, Don's been a part of some of the conversations that we've had around this. This is actually less than I was originally going to be asking for, in part because the library, as of January 1, carved themselves out from the town's IT services.
Right.
So the library is now kind of standalone for IT. There's a nonprofit organization that just does libraries, DWMRs, and they get a lot of subsidies, and so they were able to come in and be able to do what the library believes they need to have done for their IT services at a fee that no private company could match. So this is unfortunately the reality. We couldn't, for $125,000, we couldn't hire an IT person and pay benefits. And for that, we get, you know,
Mhm.
a team of IT folks.
Right, there's a team. One of the things that happened this year is there was a signed contract for a certain number of hours and support hours, and is somebody still visiting?
Yeah.
So we used to pay by invoice
Yeah,
and
à la carte.
a la carte, every call created an invoice. This year, there was a contract signed, we're paying a monthly amount with a monthly amount of hours associated with it. So you'll notice that there aren't any additional hours for projects that are going in here. So we build up, when we don't use the total hours in the contract in a month, that goes towards a project that's coming through that we don't have to have a separate line and manage IT.
Yeah, so for
IT
instance,
projects for us.
yeah, so for instance, we were, for part of the year, we were paying for 50 hours a year. We're about to cut that down because again, the library's gone.
Mhm.
I think we're gonna cut that down to 30 hours a year as of the last quarter of the year. But every hour that's in a month that we don't spend goes into our bank. And we can, if we have a large project or we need to do a lot of work. So we just had them do Cape project in town hall. So we know where all these,
All the outlets in the
all
wire,
the outlets and the wiring goes.
because on the other end, in the computer room, they have to know where they
You
are.
have to know where it is. So, and that cost us nothing because we had extra hours. And so that's gonna allow us to do some upgrades down in and move the cactus and some of the equipment down to the room
And-
number one
Right,
downstairs.
and the one that comes to mind was, there's a plan to move TCAM into the building. I don't know if that's still.
Well, the plan is to move TCAMs and stuff down into the basement,
Mhm.
and then TCAM's gonna be running it from 222 Main Street because we're gonna have a direct fiber link.
Yeah, so
Um,
that's the project that would be associated with that. Again, you know, we're not putting projects in here, we're building up the hours, trying to hit it. So it looks like more, but if, and I apologize for not having it, I didn't get to the accountant to get the quote. But if we look at the line in the 72,000 that we have on that line, it's gone already.
Yes.
It's kind of like,
Yeah.
so we, by doing this and bumping to the 125, we seem to be where we should be, going forward. So it's a big jump, but, 72,000 is gone. And as we know, when we had major breaks last year,
Oh, yeah,
we had the reserve fund
Yeah.
transfers again. That was, and there was a fair amount.
Yeah.
What's the personnel doing? Do we have somebody?
The technician is somebody that get paid a
It's a
stipend.
stipend.
It's a
for a person.
stipend by call. So he's almost like, he's our triage.
Okay,
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
kind of-
First responder.
I
Yeah.
see.
It's first on-site responder.
I
And
see.
so somebody in the building, that can be contacted, and if he can't resolve it, then he'll get the call. And,
That's
Well,
related to
that's
Guardian.
I see, yeah, yeah.
So that's MIS. The next one I think we have is, so this is, I lump these all together. It's planning, zoning, and land
Mhm.
use.
Your old,
Yes, my old world. It's just to be everything I did. There are absolutely no surprises here. The only thing that you'll notice is that land use coordinator salary down at the bottom went up. Because as I noted earlier, we cut the grant administrator position and added some grant administration, responsibilities to the land use administrator, land use coordinator's job.
right, and again, there was grant administrator here in 22, which we eliminated and moved to that other grant line
Moved it to the.
in 23. So now it's staying within the land use area, which is reallocating that.
Yeah, but other than that, it's not fully flat, fee, but they're only very minor changes.
Yeah.
So the.
6,000.
And so that's 6,000. So
Oh,
And
six, yeah.
it's the land use coordinators.
Exactly, yeah.
So those are those positions. Just to let you know about, because I said we would talk about it a little bit later, about the police and fire.
Yeah.
there was ARPA money allocated in FY 23 for one police officer position and one fire
Mhm.
position. They will not be spending any of that ARPA money in FY 23.
Yeah.
So we'll be rolling over that ARPA money to FY 24 to fund a firefighter and police position in
They
FY.
couldn't-
So they did not use it, is that what?
We never hired the positions.
Okay, I thought we did,
Well, they
okay.
tried, I mean, they were
Yeah.
they were trying to hire the positions.
Yeah.
But between people leaving and
There was an open position always.
you know, yeah, so the ARPA was the last money they were gonna spend. And then they had people leaving and they had open positions, so those
So
positions
the
never
budget
got
supported
filled.
it.
The
Yeah.
budget itself supported.
They paid for the entirety of FY 23 budget.
So they now full force, and this is a position that's needed?
Yeah, well, so next year, well, it's not funding a different new position. It's funding it's the same position,
I see.
but we're
Okay,
gonna get it
yeah,
next year.
Yeah,
So each of, and the kind of that's gonna show up as an offset in the budget for ARPA money being used for salaries.
Mhm.
Where you're gonna see the total salaries for fire and police. And that ARPA money, again, will be kind of the last money used. And if they have, as often is the case, if they have any kind of vacancy or any kind of, any extra money, then any ARPA money that wasn't spent for those purposes in FY 24 will roll over and let them spend in FY 25. So,
And
So
then,
do we lose years of, I know the money's only good for so many years, right?
right.
So did we lose a year already by not using it last year? Or does it not start until we actually use it?
Yeah, no, the entirety of the ARPA budget has to be spent by a certain time. We
Okay.
don't lose it year by year. We have arbitrarily
mean-
broken it up by years.
Say it was gonna pay position for 4 years, is it now only gonna pay it for 3? Because,
I think it was only.
It was only paying, those
One-
positions were only paid for 1
So-
year.
So the other ARPA money, like the outreach coordinator,
yeah,
had 4 years associated with it.
Right,
And so they were fully funding for, I think, all 4 years.
for all years.
okay, we're only
Then-
funding for
then-
1 year.
Right.
And last year, during the budget, we agreed to the manpower headcount, and we didn't have the money in the budget to cover it, so the Board of Selectmen looked at the ARPA money and allocated 1 year's worth of salary to give us the opportunity to come up in the operating budget for this year to pay it. So it's pushing that
I see, yeah.
Yeah.
need one more.
And so we could do that for a couple of more years if necessary. I don't think that's gonna be the case. I think we're likely to go into the ARPA money this year.
Mhm.
But I think what will likely happen is, just because vacancies happen, what will likely happen is they'll probably spend about half
Yeah.
of the ARPA money. And then next year in FY 25, we'll budget half a salary.
Yeah.
We'll have to make up the other half a salary from the general fund, but it's kind of like a self-weaning of that money
Until
until it's gone.
it's gone or the end, which is.
Well, we will spend it before it's gone.
Yeah.
Don't you worry.
It may get reallocated.
That last year,
That
we're gonna
last
spend
year-
it all first.
Yeah.
Excuse me, when we go to funding half the salary, if, heaven forbid, we can't afford that, what
Mhm.
then?
Well, so that's a question we're gonna have to ask about kind of the manpower for the fire and police at the time.
Okay,
You know, that it,
Yeah.
my guess is because the people who are leaving both fire and police are more senior people, or we're hiring more junior people, that you know,
it would be
the-
more affordable,
it's gonna
certainly.
be more affordable, that this money, we'll see probably a much smaller speed bump than I think we would normally see if we were just trying to, plug in for 1 year and then yank it away the next year.
Yeah, if you were paying for a sergeant for 1 year,
Right,
with that ARPA money, coming
Yeah.
up with the sergeant salary is a
Right.
lot bigger
very different.
than hitting that.
Um,
Is,
So yeah, so but we're cognizant of that, and so that's why I've been working with, police and fire to make sure they keep an eye on that allocation and how, and figure out, so we'll know exactly when it runs out.
Yeah.
And how
I
we're
have
gonna,
another question about the ARPA funds.
sure.
Terry Walsh, when you hired her as the accountant, she was not going to do with anything with that. So you were going to hire someone else to track and balance and
Capital Strategic Solutions.
okay, beautiful.
So that is the consultant that the town hired. The woman's name there, I think is Jennifer. She's great. She's an expert on this stuff. So whenever somebody wants to come up with a new idea for spending ARPA money, we have to run it by Jennifer to make sure that she authorizes that that's an eligible expense. And she's helping with all the tracking and doing the reporting.
Oh, good. So that's all been going along all this time.
Yes.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you.
Here, I will.
So.
Okay. Yeah.
That was
That's,
my pitch.
okay. Quite a,
It's okay to make a pitch just so long as you don't turn out to be a snake oil salesman.
He's an administrator, isn't he?
Bad judgment.
so, were you able to follow through with the scrolling? Any questions, anything you want to go back and revisit?
Yeah.
Nothing being heard on that.
So far.
We do have a properties committee meeting coming up in the near future. And so I get with the rest of that group and see what the thoughts are with that. I don't know if it fits in here under one of these, or if it should be just submitted under the Board of Selectmen.
Yeah, I mean, so my suggestion would be, if we're looking for funding for, in furtherance of closing out properties or transferring properties, we're thinking about they need to have, to do any kind of title searches or surveying of properties. That should probably be under the professional services line for the Board of Selectmen. And then that comes as part of the recommendation from the Properties Committee to the Board of Selectmen. So we think you ought to sell this, you're gonna need to have a title work done first.
Yeah.
And that would, and the Board of Selectmen would determine to spend that money. Because we wouldn't want the Properties Committee to spend the money to do it, and then the Board of Selectmen say, hey, we really don't wanna do it, you guys.
Right. Exactly. So that was the piece, because when we looked at the charter and saw, it did say that the Properties Committee was supposed to develop and submit a budget on an annual basis. So,
Yeah.
So that makes sense that it comes through and goes there. It's kind of like, so we'll pass it through to Board of Selectmen.
So I have no idea how many properties go through the Properties Committee every year and what that kind of number is. Like, is it in 10 properties? Is it 20 properties?
This year it was gonna be 2. It's 2
Okay.
that I recall that came up, and that's to date. Warren Road was one of them.
Yep.
And the other was, we were transferring a property from one town, when it was
To the cemetery.
to the cemetery, but at the time we looked at, was some of it need to be in the aquifer and need to be divided and engineer before you transfer the whole parcel.
Yeah.
So those were the two cases where we had the potential for needing.
Okay. Yeah, I think it would be, I'd be interested to hear, I mean, I know I know generally speaking, if you want to go and talk to a land surveyor and you want to have something surveyed, you're talking about $5,000. I mean, that's what I tell people is like, normal property, not any problems, $5,000. Property with problems, $10,000. That's what the land surveyor would tell you. So that it may just means that we need to determine the appropriate spot, and maybe it's a separate line under the Board of Selectmen for, for property transfer, professional services. And a budget there of $5,000 or $10,000.
Yeah, exactly. Just to start to have that,
there.
so that we're not, when there is something in a need.
Yeah, we need to
there's
do
a
it.
place to-
I don't have to come to the FinCom and get you guys to transfer me reserve
I
fund.
do a reserve fund transfer because that was unplanned.
We could zero fund the line and then I can tell you, I'm not gonna have any money to do this. You're gonna have to.
But it's a start, and again, it looks at it, it's something we can continue to pass down and have as something ongoing for the town to look at, so,
Yeah,
okay,
I think there's a reasonable.
okay.
Thank you, folks.
Okay,
Thank
when-
you.
and just before we go, well, I had ClearGov on,
Oh, yes.
so, it does not look, at least at this point, it doesn't appear is we're gonna be using ClearGov to prepare budget for this cycle, or,
Yeah, well, yeah,
so we will be, like Saturday, we don't have ClearGov to go in, call up and look at budgets.
Right.
On ClearGov this weekend, for
that's correct.
Saturday. So we're gonna be using the spreadsheets and all that, so we'll,
Let's see.
Other black things might be in.
Gray.
What?
Grant.
My gray one?
it's kind of like, if I have access to them, I don't mind driving to get through things.
Sure.
Kind of like, so.
Sure.
I think that's the piece, so yeah.
Yeah, so, we'll see where my next meeting with them takes us.
Mhm. Yeah, and, so from that, has anybody gone through additional training sessions on it? I've only done one of the modules.
Yeah, I went through a bunch of the modules, but I did.
You mean by ourselves? Has it been?
By ourselves,
Yeah.
we have the.
I've done a
training
little bit with it.
Okay, so we'll continue moving on. It's kind of like with that and I know it was a grant to get it, but was any ability to move it into FY 25?
Yeah, so my goal is gonna be that the grant that we got it for is gonna come around next year. We're still gonna be eligible for the same
Okay.
grant.
Okay,
And
because
so-
again, that's another placeholder. It's kind of like, I don't know if that was in the IT as money in the IT budget for paying for the licenses that are needed as it's ongoing.
Yeah.
Because that's the other piece is, we know there's an ongoing license that's
Right.
associated with it.
Right.
So that'll be another piece of the budget to.
Yeah,
Actually, like Terry said, I don't know how you guys are able to move forward on that. It would be an ideal tool for Cal. And it,
I mean, I think it's great for, it's just a matter of,
if
Yeah.
we could get into that part of it.
yeah.
I don't know what the cost is, but it certainly helps.
Yeah. So I think it's, I'll be talking to them about, getting the, what up and running. And since we weren't able to use it this year, I might try to like twist their arm a little bit.
Mhm.
Bring a big wrench.
Yeah. When we got it for next year.
Okay. Anything else? Any other questions for Eric? Well, he's here. Gonna go prepare for his next.
I know, I got a long one coming up in an hour.
Yeah.
One question. This Zoom, I haven't heard, this is March and I heard it was canceling after March. Has it been extended?
Oh, yes. The question, the governor has extended it through March.
The open meeting
To
stuff.
open meetings. And we haven't heard any extension.
So I've got coming up on March 17th, there's an MMA legislative meeting that I'm gonna attend. This is actually one of the first things, is whether or not either the legislature or the governor is gonna further extend the ability to use Zoom.
Or legislated into full use.
Yeah, I mean, I wish they would do that, because I think we've had it here long enough, it's obviously, we can work with it.
Yeah.
But I will let you guys know as soon as I have an answer about anything from them. But I'm hopeful to get some more direction at that legislative meeting.
Okay,
I certainly hope so. Some of us are gonna be thrown off the, government boards if we have to give up Zoom at this point in our life.
Oh, goodness. Well, we don't want that. We want more participation, not less, so.
that's right.
Wow. So, but nonetheless, I need Zoom at least for the foreseeable future, if not, I don't know how far beyond that. I did enjoy the camaraderie of being in the rooms together with you all, but right now with the several things that are out there, we're basically kind of quarantined from rooms. We do all our community stuff and with people out in the outside world, under the stars, you might say.
I will let you guys know if I hear anything.
Thank you.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Thanks. Okay, so we're at just about 5 o'clock. It's kind of, we did have, we had three, budgets on the agenda that I had set to look at. We do have the weekend coming up. I
Do
can,
them all then, right?
we can do them all then, or we can take a look.
Was there anything outstanding
Um,
that you would have seen?
There's just a couple of things with numbers. When these were originally on the schedule for February 28th, and when that meeting was canceled because of the snowstorm.
Mhm.
Uh-huh,
There were questions that came back from the library and the assessor's office. And so I forwarded what questions I had with the spreadsheets.
Do we have them? Can you pull them up on?
I can pull them up on here. We can take a look at them and I'll.
So there's three of them, the library, assessors, and what was the other one?
The building inspector,
Building inspector.
who did not ask for questions, and so I have a few things that we can look.
Okay.
So I think that would be Saturday. So let me open up here. The assessor, okay. So this, the main piece, if I look at the summary worksheet, all of the information originally provided was on one line, and so it was a total of 106,305.
Yeah.
And really what it should be, the department head is a salary and the wages, so they were separated here. The other thing, in the expense line, there was a line here, and it was originally $7,500. It was a placeholder for, similar to what we talked about with Melanson here, there's a placeholder for 40,000. This was a placeholder for 7,500 for the commercial recertification. When this was returned today, she had to quote this $5,000, so we brought it in, and so that number is now fixed. And there were two increases on the line. The Patriot software, which is an ongoing software license, the increase, the online property card records, increased in price by 50. It's kind of like, it looks like a large percentage, but it's 50.
Are those licenses or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
In shared software. But when we look at the spreadsheet, the total expenses, there is no formula to bring the change forward. So really and we can't make the changes. So I've gone back one more time and requested that this number, the 22,495, be transferred here. So that the difference in the budget is at 128. So this would be the budget being presented forward, with that one correction. And again, that's just a correction, that needs to be made because the expense line has been updated to a new price. It just hasn't been brought forward to the spreadsheet. But then again, the wages the salary wasn't brought up here into the salary line. So let me open one more. And so I made what I call the FinCom draft to try to help. And so now the expenses is brought forward from the expense line. So there is a formula to bring it forward, and the salaries and labor, again, those weren't formulas. These are formulas that are supposed to bring it forward from the labor spreadsheet. And so the salary for department head is now in the proper location in the spreadsheet, and we listed here, so now it is auto filling. So it was just some of the manual things with that. The increases are right on budget, or on target for what had been, recommended for the 2%. And again, there's only the two lines, and this is 41,273.89, 41,273.89.
Now, the 2%, is that required, or is it just something that the town actually throws in there every year? And
Last year it was 3%, this year it is 2%.
so it's not a required.
I believe the negotiation with the unions were, and
Okay.
then the rest of it is, again, the 2%.
Well, on the matrix, the difference between steps is 2%.
I'm sorry, thank you. Yep.
Okay.
Because we implemented, and I lost it. It's kind of like, if you weren't, I was gonna say, if you weren't in the room, I said, the age is 67 when you start forgetting things.
What's happening in May?
Yeah, it's kind of, so it was the Collins Center. It just took me a minute. So Collins Center is the.
They dictate the,
Yeah,
okay.
So that's where the steps are coming from.
Mhm.
The department heads, like putting it, so, and again, level funded on most of her expenses. And again, like I said, the only two that are increases are the ones where licenses. I asked if there was a contract, and it's just a year to year increase that these software companies are passing on to us that we're getting. So I didn't see anything else from there. Those were, like I say, those were the only two things that and I think I did get a note back because it wasn't there last year. I think this is an every 3-year recertification that has to happen. So this will go away next year. It's just a 1 year budget item. It'll come out 3 years in the future. I don't know if we're planning to bring the assessor in, but are there any other questions anybody sees with the assessors? Okay, so we'll close that up just so I don't have too many things open. And again, we don't have the authorizations to make changes to budgets. We have to, we go back and request changes.
When do we write our recommendation?
I think usually it had waited till the end. I'm thinking this year, I'm thinking I want to change it to, as we review a budget, we write a recommendation, review it, and approve it, vote on it, rather than just.
But we're not doing it this Saturday.
I don't think so, but I think after Saturday, we should.
We'll have all the information.
We'll have the information we need, and we can put it together.
Did he say that we were gonna have hard copies so we could? Is that what he
I
said?
think so.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
The one thing that we could vote on the individual budgets, but say we're a percentage out from having a balanced budget. If they have to do it over, we will have to revote them over again. The ones that we voted, if they were cut or changed.
Right.
So I don't know if maybe it isn't better to wait until the end, because when we go over them, more or less, you know how the committee feels or agrees
Yeah.
with what's been presented. So taking a one final vote on it would probably be the easiest thing to do. I'd say.
Yeah. I think you're right. because I will say that last year during the review, we had voted on something and agreed to it. And then when for the budget that was presented in the warrant, there was a line in it, in the budget that was unexpected. So we have to make sure it's really frozen, when we make our votes. It's kind of like, and includes, and again, I think that's in the recommendations, we have to say, this is what we're recommending. And if the budget's appearing different than what we reviewed, that's a problem, right?
Over the last few years, in general, we've agreed with the omnibus budget.
Yeah.
It's the articles where we seem to end up fighting it out.
Right, yeah. Yeah, and again, when we get to this year, I think it's gonna be very different. We're gonna have a special town meeting from December that is gonna be presented. The special town meeting from January articles will be presented, so that's supplemental. And then we have the annual town meeting special that's outside. But yeah, we have lots of it and the annual town meeting, so there are a lot of warrants and things to continue to review. So we'll have to, and again, we have the opportunity to go back and revisit the articles from the special town meetings that have been that we've already looked at, and see if the recommendations remain the same or need to change.
Sorry, I think I'm gonna.
Okay. We can. The library, we haven't had really anything, but I'll just we'll take a look at the worksheet and labor, and then I think we're gonna do this on Saturday. Real quick, the library budget, we have salary lines and wages lines. And when we look at this, the numbers approved for salaries last year was not this number. They've taken it and created a new position in the library this year.
Was that for one? But is that for 22?
It's between, so in 23, we approved one salary for the director, and everything else was wages. So this year, when they come into FY 24, they have two positions under wages or salaries, and they moved the second position that was here in wages, and they moved it into this number. So it's kind of like, and again, they only presented PDF files. So I don't have anything from behind the scenes of how they got necessarily to these numbers.
So they added another person this year, 24?
No, labor wise is the same number, but they've changed the position from, I think it was youth librarian, and they've made it assistant director technology position. It's kind of like, and everything else is pretty much remained the same.
I think that should be broken out. It's kind of deceptive the way it's presented. I mean, it doesn't,
It is.
it's not intended to deceive, but you really don't know I wouldn't have known what was there if you hadn't said it. I would have thought you had just gotten a sizable raise.
I thought, that's what I thought.
Yeah,
Exactly.
so if we take it and look at it, so now on the labor side, so this is the labor line, I'm gonna scroll up to the top. So we have the library director, and again, this is FY 23's approved number, but this is the new position, assistant director, tech coordinator. And last year, if I remember, if I scroll down, Bradley took, youth librarian. So I think the position was here, but now it's been moved up into salary, the FY '23 number was down in wages before, and now we're saying it's here with
12.6%.
with a 12.6% increase. I think it's about right, looking at the numbers, but that was a promotion from an old position to a new position, that was directed and is now here
For 12%?
for 12.6%. Yeah. And again, this is, I think it's presented by the library trustees and that. So it started here, and we can see longevity numbers are here, but when we look at the summary, the longevity was brought under expenses. So it's kind of like things are not where they should be, under those numbers. And now you've increased an expense, and this expense of 96,388, if I look at the expense line,
Don,
yep,
please excuse me. I'll be back in about 10 minutes. I gotta help with the horses.
okay.
Thank you.
We're- Here's the expense, and the expense here is 92,788. So again, what I'm trying to show with this is there's some work that needs to be done to present this and understand where the numbers are.
Right.
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 It's kind of confusing as to where.
It's kind of confusing, so I just wanted to bring it up, show you, I did, I took the PDF files and okay, library. And so I tried to recreate what the spreadsheet would look like from it. So when I look at the numbers, again, they didn't quite match. So it's kind of like, I forwarded this back to the library director and have asked her to take a look at it, and I'll schedule some time with her and sit down and see that we can get this into a workable form where numbers.
Is that gonna happen before Saturday, or is that gonna happen after?
I did say I would go this week, and she gave me
Oh, okay.
hours, so I'm gonna choose to meet with her, I think on Thursday. So this should be hopefully updated for Saturday, so that we have a spreadsheet that we can look at.
Clearly what's said.
See clearly the numbers.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, because those are sort of the pieces we need to get and understand.
Looks like the budget's is increased by what? Oh, yeah. I thought it was close to 30,000.
Okay, so if I look, it's 320 to 420, no, 405 to 429, so it's up 25,000.
25 grand.
And again, when we get into the expenses, their IT is increased,
So what has increased?
the IT,
Okay.
because
Oh, they took that over.
they took that over. So
Okay,
they-
all right.
So what we're taking a little
Okay.
bit out of our IT budget,
All right.
and they're putting it into their IT for
Okay.
purchase services.
And how much was it, 20?
It's up about $5,000.
Okay.
So it's a 23%
Yeah.
increase. So that's, again, it's kind of like, there were these things, and because there was email back and forth,
Right,
I didn't want to have the conversations, copy everybody in, and
correct. Yeah.
because open meeting law requires that we can't, but one-on-one, I figured I could send my,
When Eric was talking about the IT, them taking it over, I thought it was free. Didn't he say it was an organization?
it's CW month.
Right.
Yeah. So it
So,
is a little bit, but the membership fees for CW Mars is gonna go up. and then there's a little bump for,
So it's not free.
It is free.
it's not totally free, but
Is it less than what we would have paid?
I do believe, I think they said it's only about $1,500 for IT support from CW Mars.
But that's just,
We're looking at 25.
We're looking at 25 because it's for purchase services, so the membership fee. So if we're going up 5,000, 1,500 is the IT support, 3,500 is their other dues that they have to pay. So,
And you should remember, because probably figures in there somewhere, is that CW Mars also does their website.
Right, yeah.
They manage all their stuff, a lot of their stuff. It's a wonderful service. I don't know what I'd do without CW Mars.
It is really good, and you get that opportunity that if it's a book is not in our library, you can order from CW Mars and it shows up. And so. So those, again, this is, if there were, I know I had forwarded the PDFs, if there were any other questions, I felt I could bring them to Stacy. If not, we'll go with what I'm looking at, trying to get the consistency, a little bit more detail on some of these lines so that we understand further. And that way Saturday should be a lot easier. And there's no question. So, again, like I say, I tried to reverse engineer and I wanted to make sure I put all the right numbers in the right places for them, and hit it, because they have a note in here for one person that they're adding four hours so that they can open evening hours in the fall.
is it a person that we already have?
Yes.
So does that person go over 20 hours now?
The person was 30 hours before, is now
Oh, was-
34.
Okay.
Yeah, so, but very good lead in. The last line on the library text line, they said the hours are 58 hours.
A week?
It's a week, but this is multiple people.
Okay.
They just didn't break it out person by
Right,
person.
Okay, I think
So-
you need to,
We need to, because we
Right.
need to know to that point
right,
that how many people is this, and make sure that nobody's over the 20 hours, because
Right.
that triggers something else
It
that they
certainly
have to be
does,
planned
yeah.
for in the budget.
One of the questions I would have too is that the new assistant director was a children's librarian. Now that she's assistant director, does that mean they will next year or the year after go for a children's librarian?
We can, okay, good question. We
Well, if we're gonna, every year they say no new employees. Every year we have new employees.
right,
It's nice if we got a little ahead time on that.
right, yeah, much like, yeah.
when
it's
she
kinda-
says librarian, does that person have a degree also of librarian, a librarian degree? Or is that something they're titled?
As far as I know, she may have gotten it in the meantime, but as far as I know, Stacy is the only person with a degree in library science.
So can you call a person a librarian if they don't have the degree?
Certainly. We do it all the time.
Well, I'm sure.
I suppose it would make a difference if you stuck certified in front of it. A librarian is kind of a general term, really.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, with the certificate, yeah. So we'll, so we have questions around that, and is there a new position backfill plan for FY 25 then?
Oh, there's another thing too. The new assistant director position. The library personnel are not represented by the union. But this one may qualify as a union position. We should find out whether it is going to be or isn't going to be.
Mhm.
included.
Mhm. Okay. Um. Okay, they didn't have much in the expense line, their office supplies is level funded, their dues and subscriptions is level funded, and the books and materials is a 3% increase. Um, again, that appears to be related to a contract, item where they get their books and materials from. But again, if we, get a confirmation there's a contractor, fee is going up. And again, the purchase services, again, gets to the fact, whether, is it all CW Mars and all the different pieces?
Yeah, that's a
break down
question
into-
about that, because the way, Eric said it, it sounded like it was
Not much money.
Yeah, it wasn't much, it's not, and that's why, on the other
I think
purchase
you just need to
services, how much,
clarify that.
yeah, how much of this increase, Yeah.
Did they just increase the dues to
Yeah.
cover the fee?
Right. Yeah, so they get a bill from CW Mars and it covers these 5 items.
Right.
And they added a 6 for the IT support.
Right.
Or whatever it was, and that's where they are. Just thinking about. Okay, with that, I don't want to bring up the building inspector, I'm gonna pass on that item. Again, if we're not reviewing it here, we've got Saturday to, see what that list of, people are, and if we don't get it on Saturday, we can invite them to a meeting of the finance committee. Going forward, a few people know about this. It took me by surprise a little bit. There is the, finance committee, and board of selectmen, joint meeting, finance summit on Saturday, this coming Saturday, which will be the 11th, starting at 8:30 in the morning. And if we're going to be expected to vote on anything, we need to have a quorum, so, how many people will be able to make it Saturday at 11:30? I don't have a Zoom yet, but I would expect a Zoom to be
I'll be here.
scheduled,
I'll be here.
okay?
I'll try my best.
Okay, that's all we can ask for. And,
I can't guarantee it being in the middle of the day, but if I'm free, I'll be here. I
Okay.
assume it'll be posted under FinCom on Saturday.
It'll be posted, and I will make sure that I mail it directly to everybody, for the
I
vote.
don't know if you have to post. Because it's a joint meeting, a big joint meeting like that. I check with the town clerk. She may just post all boards like they do for a town meeting.
Okay, I will check with, town clerk on the way out tonight, and.
We have to open a meeting
double
at that, or like we normally do, because of
We-
the quorum?
We did last year,
We did.
yeah, and that's what I recalled, so it's kind of like, I just want to make sure that we're gonna have a quorum to open it. And again, we didn't have a quorum when we started, we did get a quorum, we called it to order when we had the quorum, and then if we lose the quorum, we have to close it back out. But it gives us the opportunity to hear from the department heads firsthand and ask any questions, so, I think it's a good opportunity to get that kind of information. available.
It's 11 o'clock,
No,
8:30.
8:30 in the morning?
8:30 in the morning. It is,
That's good. Thank you.
it's March 11th, and I think that's maybe where you got the 11.
Yeah.
So Saturday, March 11th,
Okay,
8:30 in the
I
morning.
can be confused. You're welcome.
Okay, well, thank you.
The eyes of Mark.
I can, that's
At
what it is.
8:30 in the morning, the only thing I want to see is the back of my eyelids.
I'm afraid I can't stay in that long, no matter how much I try.
I'm with you. It's kind of like, still can't barely get past 5:30. Okay, and I apologize for going long, especially to Mark.
No, it's fine. I stopped coughing.
At this point, we do have a meeting scheduled for the 21st, so we'll continue with that schedule. That would be March 21st on Tuesday, 2 weeks from now, so. With all that, the next meeting is Saturday morning. I will, entertain a motion to adjourn at 5:27.
Make a motion to adjourn?
I'll second it.
There we go.
Okay, we have a motion to adjourn and a second roll call vote.
Gerald Bazekis, yes?
Mark Hussey, yes.
Andrea Wood, yes.
Sam Grant, yes?
Okay, and Don Hayes, yes, it's unanimous. We're done.